Oh my goodness, this was the night of Takeover in your house. And while a lot of things didn't really happen in terms of like title changes and things like that on this show, a lot of change is gonna come from NXT in these next couple weeks and months. And I'm gonna break down everything that came from this show for you. My name is Jordan Moser, and this is your NXT Takeover in your house, in your living room, y'all. Recap and review. First up in the night, we got the winner take all the gold, the six-man tag, Legado del Fantasma facing the champions respectively, MSK and Bronson Reed. We see the beginning of this matchup start very fast, all the members of each of the individual teams just going at each other one-on-one. We see Escobar tag in, but Reed tags in because he wants Escobar, but Escobar don't want him. He's very terrified. He tags out and lets Mendoza handle things. Bronson Reed, very impressive and very dominant in the first part of this match. We even see at one point MSK holding up Joaquin Wilde, and Reed comes in for a senton, just elevated in the air. I thought that was pretty awesome. Legado do eventually take control later on. They just go after breaking down and holding down Wesley, who has become the face in peril in all situations pretty much. But he eventually gets out of that. He tags Bronson Reed back in, and he comes in like a locomotive, just taking care of everything, throwing everybody everywhere, really taking control. And that is until Escobar actually gets him up in the air for a Michinoku driver. It's eventually broken up at 2, but definitely something that I was thinking about going into the matchup. How would Escobar even get Reed up in the air for a Michinoku driver or a Phantom driver in that respect? So definitely good to kind of see. He has that strength, that big body, of course. But yeah, it just breaks down from here. Everybody's throwing moves. Everybody's laid out. We see near the end of this matchup, Escobar, he goes outside the ring and grabs that North American Championship and just yells into the camera like so. And then he turns around and Bronson Reed, a la a couple of weeks ago, just runs him through the barricade. The barricade crashes and crumbles under the weight of both of those members, and then we see Joaquin Wilde just taken out as well, and that leaves Raul Mendoza in the ring to get super kicked a bunch of times, hit with that elevated blockbuster by MSK, and one final tsunami splash from Bronson Reed for the 1-2-3 and the win. The champions retain their championships, of course. A very fun way to start off the night. Is definitely the match that needed to kick things off. Of course, definitely put us in the big mood going into the rest of the show, which was very interesting to say the least. This is the only face win on the card, so it was definitely a good high energy to kind of kick the card off, and very fun. Definitely the champions deserve to retain. It pains me in my heart to see Legado fail again, but I hope better things are coming for the future. But as of this moment, this was a very nice job by everybody involved. Next up, we had the matchup between Mercedes Martinez and Xia Li. Xia Li coming to the ring, possibly rocking the worst braids I have ever seen. Like, the color was not good. I didn't like it. But we're not going to talk about that because that's not why I'm here. We're going to talk about the matchup, where Xia Li was frankly impressive. It started off with just them brawling, but Xia Li really took control early on. This is possibly one of the longest matchups that she's been in since her return with Tian Sha, and she was just as aggressive and as physical as we've seen from her recently. So that was really good, especially at the beginning of this matchup. Martinez did start to kind of come back a little bit. It started off with Xia Li accidentally kicking the ring post on the outside and just damaged that leg and allowed Martinez to kind of take control. She hit a face buster in the ring, as well as a backdrop on the outside as Bo was trying to stand in the way and kind of interfere, like, you can't get past me. And then she got past him and then backdrop to Xia Li on the outside. They get back in the ring as we near the end of the matchup. She's going for that air raid crash, but Xia Li reverses it, push her against the ropes, and then just hits that spinning kick out of nowhere. Frankly, I did not expect it, for the 1-2-3 and the win for Xia Li. She got her first win in her first matchup on the Takeover. Good work, Xia Li, of course. Boa, after the matchup, is like, hey, take this chair. Finish the job. Remember what she did to you 4 years ago. And so Xia goes to work, but she is reversed by Martinez. She starts wailing on the chair for both Xia and Boa, just taking them out on the outside. And that's when the lights get spooky and everything gets dark. And Tian Sha's member, their main member, Mei Ying, she gets up out her chair that she's been sitting in for 3 months, way to go. She gets up and she just all creepy. Martinez is out the ring like, come on, girl, let's go, let's do it. And they start walking up on each other, and then Mei Ying all of a sudden just grabs her like this, like the Tongan death grip. I loved it. And she just like tossed her to the outside, and she just got decimated just on the ring on the outside as Xia Li and Boa and Mei Ying make their leave. I know this is meant to be serious, but this was so much fun. I'm not going to lie to you. Just seeing her finally do something was very interesting to me, and it didn't really do that much. Like, it wasn't even a lot that she did, just grab her and then threw her. But I'm not going to lie, I kind of liked it. I'm looking forward to her possibly getting in the ring in the future. I know that's what we've all been waiting for, just to see kind of happen. The matchup itself, very basic. I won't go too much into like liking it or anything like that. It's very forgettable. But what happened after the matchup, though, definitely pushes Tian Sha in the right direction, because Mei Ying, she needs to do something instead of just sitting there, please. So yeah, all in all, after the matchup, very good stuff. But the matchup, I would say, very basic and didn't really have a lot of heat to it or anything like that, unfortunately. And next up, we have the ladder match for the newly brought back $1 Million Championship by Ted DiBiase. Brings it in a nice little clear briefcase and suspended it above the ring. We got that match between LA Knight and Cameron Grimes. We see the start to this matchup, wild lockup to begin. A lot of wrestling early on, I would say, with Grimes kind of handling business in that realm. But then we see the ladders kind of introduced, and we see a lot of jockeying and fighting with the ladders. I would say it's kind of awkward a little bit early on, and then just kind of going through the motions, but it definitely picked up in the latter part. We see Knight kind of take control on the outside of the ring, just taking care of Grimes for the most part. He works his way back in and tries to go for that briefcase, but Grimes is not having it. He starts to fight back while they're in the ring. At one point, Cameron Grimes just German suplexes LA Knight into a ladder set up in the corner, but Knight's not having that. He comes right back with a nice little leaping neck breaker onto the tip of the ladder in the corner as well. At one point later on, both men are down. Grimes is back up, and he's like, I want the gold ladder. He sees the gold ladder at the top of the ramp, goes and brings back in the ring, and then tries to climb it. Both men are just down after LA Knight pushes him off of that ladder, and everything just kind of kerfuffles and happens, and both men end up down. They kind of work their way back to the outside of Cameron Grimes. He's thrown into a ladder, but just quick on his feet, he climbs up on it, and then LA Knight tries to knock the ladder down, but he quickly moves onto the scaffold, and Cameron Grimes is at the top of the Capitol Wrestling Center, and he does a crossbody right down onto LA Knight. He just takes him out, and this is his moment. It's his opportunity. He is climbing that ladder up to the ring. He has his hands on the briefcase, and it wasn't his time. LA Knight is back in, and he pushes that ladder over into a contraption of ladders set up on the ramp, takes out Cameron Grimes. LA Knight climbs up the ladder, takes down that briefcase, and he is the new $1 Million champion. Ted DiBiase, of course, presents him with the title after the matchup, and they celebrate, and the pyro goes off, and everything like that, of course. Fair ladder match. There's honestly not a lot of different things they can really do in ladder matches. I really feel like WWE has exhausted all of its options for new things in ladder matches. So this was pretty by the book, I would say, but not a bad matchup at all. Both men worked their butts off, definitely. I would say the ending took a lot out of it for me. Definitely expected Cameron Grimes to kind of get the big babyface win here, but it did not come to be. He'll more than likely be chasing that title and LA Knight for the next couple months, which is fine. You know, baby Grace Grimes, he's kind of getting into the feel of that new character and being a babyface, so it'll be fine. But at the end of the day, didn't really leave a good taste in my mouth with this victory. So very fair and by the book ladder matchup, and definitely took a lot of taste out of my mouth with that victory for LA Knight, but that's okay though, that's okay. And next up, we got the NXT Women's Championship match. Raquel Gonzalez, the champion, with Dakota Kai defending against Ember Moon. We see a very quick start off to this matchup, but both women just throwing bombs right out the gate. But of course, Raquel Gonzalez, with her strength, with her size, so imposing, she takes control early on. But we do see her kind of diversify her moveset a little bit. We see her hit a nice little second rope twisting senton out of the corner. Very good, very impressive. Go ahead, diversify your moonsault, girl. You got that. But we do see Moon start to come back a little bit later on. She just starts throwing shots. Eventually throws a nice big forearm to take Raquel off her feet for the first time. We do see at this point, this is when Dakota Kai starts to get involved in the matchup a little bit more. She pulls Gonzalez out of the ring to just try to help her and get out of that submission. And like, hey girl, focus. This leads to Ember Moon eventually hitting a suicide dive on the outside as well. We work our way back into the ring as Gonzalez has Ember Moon up in a suplex position. She reverses it. It's a nice stunner in the ring, and this eventually leads to her hitting a full eclipse, takes her down. She gets her, unfortunately, near the rope. She goes for the pin, and Dakota Kai comes out of nowhere, places Gonzalez's foot on the rope, and that's a rope break. Ember Moon is very upset. She wants to go after Kai, but she's got work to do. But that's when Shotzi Blackheart, with the pigtails and all, she comes back and she just takes out Dakota Kai. She runs her around the ring, beats her up, and then runs her to the back. So it is now 1-on-1 fully. We see Ember Moon eventually later on go for that eclipse one more time for the top rope, but it is reversed. She is caught. She is thrown up against that rope. Snake Eyes in the corner, and that eventually leads to that one-arm power bomb, the Shikingo bomb. I don't know if that's how you say it, but I'm gonna correct myself later. But she hits that one-arm power bomb for the 1-2-3 and the win. A good retention for Raquel Gonzalez over Ember Moon. Very nice matchup. I definitely thought if it got a little bit more time and it didn't really focus too much on the Dakota Kai and Shotzi Blackheart stuff, I definitely thought they could have had time to let this breathe a little bit more. But definitely for what it was and the time that it was given, it was awesome. Raquel definitely looked like a good champion. I would say they need to not let Dakota Kai kind of get involved in her stuff a little bit more, because that's just kind of taken away from the dominance that she has been showing over the past like 8 months or so. So just let her kind of do her thing, of course. But Ember Moon definitely looks like a player again, definitely looks like someone who could contend for the NXT Women's Championship again later on. So I'm definitely down for everything that kind of happened here, just in terms of things going on in the next weeks and months and character growth and everything like that. So yeah, this is definitely what it needed to be, of course. And last up in our main event, we got the NXT Championship 5-way. Karrion Kross, the champion, defending against Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, and Pete Dunne. We do see pretty much the structure of this matchup goes. Karrion Kross is this unbeatable freaking abdominal monster, and how many times could the other 4 members in the match take him out before he just comes back again in Rex Shop? But we see the beginning of this matchup, all of the members have their hand in just taking Kross down and chipping away at him, but none are able to really take him down fully for the most part. We see Kross is eventually goaded to the outside, where he kind of gives up that momentum, of course, and he is thrown into the set through the door on the outside by Johnny Gargano and Pete Dunne. And at this point, everything just breaks out in the ring for the other 4 members. They are throwing bombs at each other, which I will talk about a little bit later on. But we do see Kross kind of eventually work his way back from being thrown into that door as well. Just takes out everybody on the outside, just suplexes everybody over the rope. Even at one point, just choke bombs Johnny Gargano on the apron, which looked disgusting. Like, I really hope he was okay, because that kind of hurt me a little bit. But we do see at one point Karrion Kross is just thrown down again. Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly actually come together to powerbomb him through the table on the outside, or at least into the table, because it didn't break, but onto the table on the outside. We see just more of all other 4 men just going at it, just throwing bombs at each other, throwing double team moves out the woodwork, like they were coming out of nowhere, like they didn't even mean to do these double team moves. They just kind of happened, and it we'll get to that later on, of course. But Karrion Kross does eventually come back. He is just facing off with Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne is like, you gotta come with me one-on-one. He rolls back in the ring, and the crowd is cheering that boy on. Pete Dunne was freaking over in this matchup. I would say he's the one that the crowd definitely cared about the most. But him and Kross were just going at it. Eventually hits a bitter end on Kross, only for a 2 count. He kicks out. We see later on as everything else is still going on, Kross eventually gets a nice little straight jacket onto Johnny Gargano, but it's at this point, it's kind of up, it's kind of sitting up, and Adam Cole comes out of nowhere with the last shot, just takes him out, and at this point, everything kind of breaks down, and eventually Kyle O'Reilly ends up on the top rope, and he hits that knee, that diving knee onto Karrion Kross as well. It looks like he has the title, but Adam Cole, as the 2 count happens, just super kicks him and gets him out of the ring, and he goes ahead and hits that last shot, or tries to hit that last shot on Kyle O'Reilly as well. And wow, a lot of things are happening here, but it's at this point, Kyle O'Reilly locks in a knee lock on Adam Cole. He tries to get him to tap out, and Karrion Kross just comes out of nowhere. He recovers and just locks that nice little choke on Kyle O'Reilly. So we got 2 submissions going on, and Kyle O'Reilly can't hold on to it no more. He passes out within like 30 seconds. That is it. and Karrion Kross retains the NXT Championship. Wow, that was a lot, and a lot happened in this matchup, I would say. One thing I will say about this matchup, while I think it was a great main event that NXT put on, for me, wrestling, just feels to be, it needs to be a little bit natural, I would say. I definitely think a lot of things about this main event were very contrived and very kind of choreographed in a way that kind of took away from the matchup a lot for me. A lot of the double team moves that were kind of thrown, especially as all the four other members outside of Karrion Kross were just kind of going at it in the ring. All those moves just felt kind of placed together. While it was very like seamless and straight, like they were doing their job, it just felt very like, okay, like they just needed to string move A to B to C to D together, and it just kind of felt like it wasn't like a natural flow of progression in the matchup at all. So that kind of took away from it for me. Still a great main event, but definitely it felt kind of, like I said, contrived and kind of felt not natural in any way for a lot of the parts of this matchup. Pete Dunne was definitely the star of the matchup for me. Him along with Johnny Gargano, they really held their own and just kind of did their thing throughout this matchup to kind of hold everything together for the most part. But Kross retaining, I'm not mad about it. Definitely, I don't see who he fights at this point. I guess he just starts to fight everybody one-on-one for the most part, pretty much. But yeah, we'll definitely see what happens in the later months with that. I don't know where the other men in the matchup go from here either, but it'll definitely be interesting to see how they kind of branch off for the most part. So yeah, great main event, and definitely a good looking Kross retaining to kind of continue his championship reign. And that is going to be the end of your main event and your end of this episode, not your episode, your pay-per-view of NXT Takeover in your house. This takeover, the first one since NXT's Takeover Stand and Deliver, was it was all right. We had a couple of high points. I would say definitely the beginning of the night with that six-man tag match was definitely a good way to kind of kick off the show, and the main event capped it in such a nice and beautiful way with Kross retaining his championship. The crowd didn't like that too much, but definitely the right decision kind of going forward from a nice main event. Felt a kind of little bit of lull, I would say, around the middle part of the night. The Xia Li Mercedes Martinez matchup was kind of lacking, even though afterwards it kind of picked up. Ladder match was very by the book, and a very nice NXT Women's Championship match as well. But definitely the booking decisions on the show, I would say, were A-okay as well. Outside of the ladder match, I definitely thought Grimes deserved kind of that nice little big babyface win, but it'll be kind of okay to see him chase LA Knight for the next couple months. But yeah, very alright and interesting show. We'll note William Regal, after the show ended, just goes outside and says, "Hey, there was a lot of bedlam here tonight. It might be time for a change." And I was like, "William, don't leave. Don't do what I think you're doing." If he does leave, that's perfectly fine. I don't know who they would get to replace him in any capacity, or if the NXT roster will just run themselves, kind of the way that Raw was doing for a little while before Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville kind of showed up. But yeah, that'll definitely be interesting. I don't want Rigo to leave, but I would definitely kind of be okay with somebody else kind of taking up the mantle, because he has been doing it for a long time, of course. But yeah, that's gonna be it. A very nice takeover show. We'll see what happens throughout the next couple months, leading into probably SummerSlam weekend for the next takeover. But that's gonna be it from me. You will see videos throughout the week, and I am out. Peace, good night. Black women are perfect. Don't forget. I'll see y'all soon.